All right, it is 1 o'clock on Thursday, March 27th, 2025, and looks like we still have a couple of people popping in here. My name is Faith Fredrickson. I'm a meteorologist with the National Weather Service office here in Gaylord, and we're going to be talking here about the very unpleasant wintry system that's coming up for the weekend, which has a lot of tricks to consider, which we'll talk about as we go through the presentation. So as I mentioned, it's not going to be a pleasant weekend across parts of the area. There's significant icing possible with right now the current thinking is across the straits up into the eastern UP, as noted by the map there on the right where the orange colors are there. That's medium confidence and at least a 1/4 inch of ice. And right now there's medium confidence just with the uncertainty of a boundary. And we're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes here when we get to that slide. But there is a decent shot that somebody's going to get some pretty significant freezing rain, especially across the straits in the UP. Right now, our thinking is that the highest accumulations are going to be more likely on cold, elevated, flat surfaces. It can be a little bit trickier to get that kind of accumulation on rounded, elevated surfaces such as tree branches and power lines, as well as paved surfaces that are a little bit warmer. But it's definitely going to be impactful to some degree across a decent part of the area. In addition, with all of the uncertainty with this, there's potential for an inch or two of sleet, especially up toward M28 and north up toward the Sault Ste. Marie area, but that probability of sleet is most likely over the eastern UP, Chippewa County, up in that region. And then to make things worse, or at least keep things going, is and another little system's going to move up in here along this lingering boundary Saturday night into Sunday, and that'll keep the potential for wintry mix, wintry precipitation, even the potential for freezing rain in the forecast right on through the whole weekend, basically. Looking more specifically at the hazards here, the potential for freezing rain is going to lead to that potential for accumulating ice with those medium chances, medium confidence in at least a 1/4 inch. There are low chances for up to a 1/2 inch of ice, which would be very significant. And the highest accumulations, as I mentioned earlier, are going to be expected on those cold, elevated, flat surfaces. So that would be like things like patios, that like the decks and things of that nature. Lesser accumulations on the rounded surfaces, potentially, just because it can be a little bit trickier to get that full accumulation around the tree branch or the power line, or etc. But there's still potential for a pretty good amount of ice, 1/4 to a 1/2 inch across the region overall. So this is definitely going to have some impacts, especially across our eastern UP and Straits region. Again, with there's basically going to be a really tight temperature gradient across the area. And there's potential still for that gradient to shift even 20 to 40 miles, which could shift the best potential for the freezing rain or the sleet or snow versus rain. That line is going to shift. And to be quite honest with you, there's probably going to be some area where this forecast busts and is totally wrong, which is one of the tricky parts with systems like this, where it's a very, very tight temperature gradient with a lot of activity along it, like this. It's one of the most tricky forecast challenges that we'll run across as far as meteorology goes. So that's why this isn't like 100% high confidence in anything with this system. But it does look like we have a decent shot of freezing rain and some potential for sleet, especially across the UP. There could even be a couple of inches of snow or so up toward the Sioux based on the current forecast idea. Additionally, on top of the sleet, snow, freezing rain potential, winds are likely going to be a little bit on the stronger side, gusting up toward 20 to 35 miles an hour at times through the weekend, with gustiness Friday night and Friday into Friday night as that first system moves through, and then just kind of hang on through the weekend with some lower points and some higher points. But we're right now expecting freezing rain to start Friday afternoon, with the most significant icing potential Friday evening into early Saturday morning. There could be some light freezing rain that hangs on through the day Saturday, which could accumulate with some efficiency. So that's something that we'll also be keeping an eye on. So even when it's not like a ton of rain, it could still be freezing rain lightly and accumulate fairly efficiently. So that's something that we'll be keeping an eye on too for Saturday. And then going into Saturday night into Sunday, that next system comes up the boundary, up the front, and we get this second round of wintry mix with the potential for more freezing rain and sleet. But a lot of that is going to depend on how things change and actually evolve with the current system for Friday night. And again, as I mentioned, our forecast confidence is really not strong for some of those reasons that I mentioned, with this really, really tight temperature gradient that could still shift the potential for freezing rain versus sleet or snow 20 to 40 miles north or south from what we're currently thinking. But the highest confidence right now is across the tip of the Mid Straits region up into the eastern UP for freezing rain and sleet. And excuse me, so we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on this through the weekend and tomorrow as we keep watching guidance and as things continue to change upstream of us. So it's basically one of these things we're basically going to have to watch and see what the whites of its eyes does. That's one of these really, really difficult systems to actually get this very specific details. But for now, our current thinking is that the freezing rain is most likely going to be across the straits and in the eastern UP for the most part, or at least the most significant. Here's a brief look at what we're currently expecting for winds, sustained winds, generally out of the east to northeast going into Friday and then Saturday, though there's some potential further south, like toward Manistee, Gladwin, Houghton Lake, where the winds could shift around to the south to southwest if they get into the warmer part of the system. And then things start to kind of cool back off Saturday night into Sunday as we kind of get a little bit in behind the first system. Winds could be kind of gusty at times too, with this currently expecting wind gusts up in the 25 to potentially 30 plus mile an hour range up in the straits. The easterly flow through the straits will definitely be able to enhance some of the windiness, some of the gustiness up across that region. And To some degree, this is going to be subject to change based on the position of where the system ends up actually tracking and where that temperature temperature difference actually ends up setting up. If the system tracks more to the north, there will be more southerly winds. It'll be warmer over a better part of northern lower, perhaps into parts of eastern upper too. But if it ends up being a little bit further south, which is the current thinking, that's going to keep things a little bit colder, more inclined toward freezing rain, sleet, snow, from the tip of the Mitt up through the rest of the eastern UP. And that'll be enhanced more by those northeasterly to northerly winds that'll come in, especially Friday night into Saturday. This is kind of our current temperature forecast idea, and you can see there's some spots like Grayling, Houghton Lake, Manistee, Cadillac. Basically, our more southern locations are much more favored for temperatures to be above freezing or well above freezing and to stay warm. But again, if that front ends up a little bit farther north, then areas even up toward Gaylord could have potential to be up into the 40s and 50s, and that's one potential scenario that could happen. But for now, we're thinking it'll be a little bit closer to the 30s range, fluctuating around that 32 to 35 range, which is for the Gaylord area in particular, which is going to be it's going to be tricky as far as that precipitation type goes. But the coldest temperatures right now are expected to stay up across the eastern UP, especially up toward the Sioux and up that way, up across Chippewa County, with the most uncertainty basically between Mackinac County and Otsego County on where that front is going to end up. Current thinking on the winter impacts timing is especially Friday evening and definitely Friday night into Saturday, potentially into Saturday morning for some of those areas where the freezing rain or sleet stays more persistent, which again, currently thinking that's going to be across the Straits region into the tip of the Mitt. Unfortunately, the freezing rain potential the freezing rain could be very persistent. So you might have to treat roads multiple times to combat the icing if this occurs, as we're expecting. The gusty winds, of course, are going to be problematic for places where there's ice on tree limbs and on power lines, especially if we end up staying in this freezing rain, sleet, yucky weather system through the whole weekend. It could be problematic for getting power companies out to be able to fix things up safely and easily. And again, obviously surfaces are going to be a bit on the slick side, especially Friday evening into Saturday with that initial round of freezing rain that we're expecting. And then on top of all of this, we have the potential for some thunderstorms Friday and Saturday. There's a fair bit of elevated instability above the warm front that could has potential to produce some large hail with any thunderstorms that develop Friday afternoon into potentially Saturday or into potentially Friday night. And the thunderstorms are going to be possible across all of northern Michigan. We could see some rumbles of thunder with this, but the best chance for the severe storms right now looks like it's going to be mainly toward like Sheboygan down toward Manistee, parts of Mackinac County, off into the western UP and especially across Wisconsin right now. So that's something that we're also going to be keeping an eye on as we go forward. And just kind of a brief look ahead through the next several days. The main focus is obviously going to be this weekend with the potential for the icing and the sleet, the stronger winds, and potentially some snow hanging on. Things should start to quiet down Sunday into Monday, and then start to quiet down later Sunday into Monday after we get like this northerly flow that could produce a little bit more of accumulating snow across parts of the area. And then we have a little bit, some signals for snow and rain chances Wednesday, but we have a lot to get through before Wednesday. So we'll try to bite off what we can chew theoretically here. So some other key messages for the next 7 days. Behind this system this weekend, we're going to get some cooler temperatures to settle in through early next week. Once we kind of get on the back side of everything and things quiet down, especially toward Tuesday. We could see some milder temperatures toward midweek next week as precipitation chances start to return. And then it looks like there's some signals for a warming trend for next weekend as we get into the start of April and into the first week of April or so. It looks like things might stay a little bit on the active side, but the warmer side could at least keep us from some of this freezing rain, wintry, snowy potential that we're dealing with right now. So here's our contact information. We have our email address. You can check with us there. There's always somebody that's monitoring that email address 24/7. Our Facebook is always monitored, as is our X, formerly known as Twitter, page. You can also call us at any time, 24/7 at 989-732-9306. And there's always somebody here that picks up the phone, and we'll try to talk you through the forecasts and what we're currently thinking. Let's see here. Looks like we got some questions coming in. All right, somebody is asking, will there be another graphic slide deck weather packet coming out yet this afternoon? The answer is yes. We're going to have the latest updates from the afternoon forecast package in that next graphic slide deck update that'll probably come out sometime between 3 and 5 this afternoon. If you have any other questions, there's a little question box that you can pop your questions into there. Again, you can always call us and check back in with us as needed. We are always here for you. I'll hang on here for a little bit longer if anybody has any more questions they want to type in, or you can always feel free to call us again. Our number is 989-732-9306, or you can send us an email, check in with us on Facebook or X. Otherwise, have a good day and good luck this weekend.